Gentlemen, I want to take a quick step back for a second and replay a soundbite from then presidential candidate Mitt Romney about what he considered to be the most pressing security threat to the United States.
Well, this is to Russia. This is, without question, our #1 geopolitical foe.
You know, Romney caught some flack for making that statement. A lot of people brush it off as his, perhaps maybe him being too aloof with foreign policy. But some ways, when you look at what Putin is trying to do with the Ukraine, Romney's statement's somewhat justified there.
Yeah, he's absolutely right, and he was demonized by many on the left by saying that, the Cold War is over and that this is a relic of the past. But when you're dealing with former KGB agent Vladimir Putin, who said that his biggest disappointment in the 20th century was the collapse of the Soviet Union, we see someone that is seeing our vacuum, our, running away from the Middle East and running away from these countries that we helped to liberate. He sees this as an opportunity to reestablish his power and control. Who would have ever thought that Egypt would be inviting Russia to come in and have a warm water port there in the Mediterranean? So this is what happens when you don't have a long-term strategic vision with foreign policy.
President Obama, Dick, has tapped Vice President Biden, but, we heard Jay Carney there, the White House press secretary. But is anybody listening?
Well, Carney's line was terrible. He said violence by both sides, a moral equivalence between them. Ukraine is 2/3 Ukrainian, 1/3 Russian. The Russians live in the eastern part of the country. In the first free elections they were allowed to have after they were liberated from communism in 2009, I represented the guy who won, who was poisoned, and his face got distorted because he was fed soup with dioxin in it during a negotiation with the KGB about liberating his country. Then, inexplicably, last year, the Ukrainian voters voted this pro-Russian president in. Not so inexplicably. Russia turned off the gas, and they couldn't heat and they couldn't light. And Russia said, we're going to keep the gas off unless you elect this guy. Meantime, the European Union comes in with an offer 4 or 5 times as big as Russia's, so much more important, but no threat to turn off the gas. And after the election, these protesters, a year or two later, took to the streets and now are mounting a very serious effort to get rid of this quasi-communist regime. It's critically important because Russia doesn't mean anything without the Ukraine. Russia's population is 135 million and shrinking, 140. Ukraine is 56. It's by far the largest of the former Soviet republics. You separate the Ukraine from Russia, and you reduce Russia to the relative status of a second or third-rate power. So Putin has been using his gas monopoly to try to force the Ukraine into the Russian orbit. Europe has been pulling him this way, and the United States hasn't done a damn thing.
And so, Alan, what would you suggest?
Played no role in this at all.
As opposed to what we heard from Carney, and aside from having the vice president call the Ukrainian president, what would like to see the administration doing right now?
The president has to get engaged and get involved. I mean, this is a point where you need to have leadership, and the leadership of the United States of America. Think about, Ronald Reagan some years ago stood up and said to Mr. Gorbachev, tear down this wall. And he created a sense of a drive toward liberty and freedom in that part of the world behind that curtain. So now we need Americans to have a leader that steps up and takes an engaged role. And I think that's the problem, where we don't see the president engaging anywhere. He said we're going to pivot away from the Middle East. We're going to go to China. We're not doing anything in Asia because China just took over the Senkaku Islands.
It's more than not going for them. The Putin-Obama alliance in relationship, which was strained by Snowden but has been reinforced when he pulled the missiles out of Eastern Europe, is such that the Ukrainians really believe that U.S. is on the Russian side.
Of course. Yeah. The same with the Egyptians. The Egyptians are angry with Obama supporting the Muslim Brotherhood.
Hard to think, Alan, as you said, that Egypt will be opening up its ports to the Russian Navy.
And forget Venezuela.
And Venezuela, too. We'll discuss Venezuela in more detail when we come back on the other side of this break. But we, of course, want to hear from you. We wanted you to weigh in on this discussion. Do you think President Obama is responsible for this power vacuum that we're seeing not only in South America but also in Eastern Europe as well? Talk to us on Twitter, Facebook, or email us directly. Contact information is up on the screen right now. When we come right back, we'll have more with Lieutenant Colonel Alan West and Dick Morris with their take on what's going on in Venezuela. We'll be right back after this.